does that mean we are not moving? If the energy takes over and we are not even thinking, how are we moving?
Well, it's a good question then. Who are we? Right? Who are involved? Who are we then? Simplicity here. You see, again, I will speak now from that more down to earth, tangible perspective so that we can relate and transfer that onto, if we want to, after we've done that, onto the spiritual work, onto the field of spiritual unfoldment. But every artist, true artist, when they have breakthroughs, have one thing in common. One thing in common is that this realization that it had its way with me. There is at some point something takes over. And that this is what then later would be called genius, talent, right? Mastery, right? And so forth. But what really happened is one simply entered a state where that what is in control gives way to that what overtakes then. And that what always eager to take and to remain in control is temporarily, even if temporarily, is dissolved. This is what we call step back. So then that question, right? That question wouldn't even rise in its full measure. And that realization is always humbling. Always humbling. And therefore, great artists are all great beings of spirit. All of them. Doesn't matter field of enterprise and field of self-expression, because there is direct acknowledgement that this simply happens on its own. And it's a privilege, it's a very humbling experience. Of course, now, if all of us are suddenly, and this is a seminar on the history of art, or some what have you, like we come up with the theme, right? We come up with something, to pique your curiosity. You booked yourself in, and we have to go into this. Yes, in the course of the history of art, in a long corridor of time, there are times all the time like that, when art is not art, but a mere decadence, or a mere pretense for something, because it's lacking of that freedom of spirit. It's lacking of that playfulness of spirit which had its way with us. In any act, whenever we read that poetry, whenever we read that prose, whenever we hear that music or look at that picture, we partake in that and transport it on the account of that force had its freedom when that what is eager to control was temporarily dissolved. Now you can translate that on your own into the spiritual realm of this world. You see? But it's just simply more tangible example of what happens in creative process. And therefore I said it's exhilarating always to create. Because the creativity itself is exhilarating. It's an opportunity, again, where we consciously offer ourselves into that which will have its way with us. I often speak about it at the retreats, especially like we had this emphatically now in the last couple of years, the latest one in Italy, which was dedicated to the power of beauty. And the book I'm working at the moment is precisely to that theme. It's the least explored, maybe last frontier, the last term that is left in spiritual vocabulary that has not yet been fully explored and for what it is. But that's what this experience is. That experience of beauty is experience of freedom. But freedom here is simply from. It's the freedom from the imposition of what maybe in American spirituality called ego.
we become passive and not thinking that we are more aligned with those.
Exactly. We certainly not become less, we become more. That dissolution here is always become more, right? Like Rumi exclaimed, in non-existence of myself, I found all existence. That non-existence is a prerequisite. There's no deal. This is what it means. You cannot enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become children again, the biblical one, right? So the same thing is being spoken here. Our greatness can never be realized unless that idea of ourselves is dissolved. And hence the spiritual work begins there and then. It begins there and then, this realization that our greatness is always impeded by the notion of whom we consider ourselves. And this is the eternal battle. This is where the forces come head to head.